2855. That's north of Morton Road. This is in the Katy, Brookshire area. We also understand that this is near Henriksen Jet Center, which is a Houston executive airport. We don't have any word on injuries or fatalities there, but obviously you can see it's a major scene of devastation there with this plane. We don't know if it was trying to take off from the airport or was just arriving at the airport or any information like that yet. This is just the beginning stages of what we are trying to find out for you right now. But just to let you know, this is a small plane crash in the Brookshire Katy area. We just saw video of this just a few minutes ago, so we're trying to get as much information as we can about this. But this is a big area down there where they have a lot of firefighters trying to stretch out the hoses to try to put this fire out and try to determine if there's any survivors here. But again, this is in the area north of Morton Road on FM 2855. A small plane crash. It doesn't look like the smallest of planes. We don't know how many people were on board, but firefighters are trying to put out the fire. Obviously, investigators will be out there looking for any survivors. We don't know how many people were on this plane, but again, this just happened just a few minutes ago, and we're trying to get more information for you. But be aware of what's going on there in the Katy area, north of Morton Road, FM 2855. We will, of course, be staying on top of this all morning long. You can go to khou.com for more information on this as we get it. You can download the KHOU app. Of course, we'll have more information for you on KHOU 11 News at noon coming up. But as soon as we get more information, we'll break in if we have to. But small plane crash, Brookshire Katy area, FM 2855 north of Morton Road. I'm getting some more information right here now. From the DPS, no serious injuries and no fatalities. So that is great news from the Department of Public Safety. We are hearing from the DPS that there are no serious injuries and no fatalities, which is great news considering what that wreckage looks like right now. Firefighters still struggling to put out the fire. But again, FM 2855 north of Morton Road, the Katy, Brookshire area near Henriksen Jet Center. A small plane crash. The good news, no fatalities, no injuries. Go to khou.com for more information. Download the KHOU app, and we'll have a full report coming up at KHOU 11 News at noon. I'm Ron Trevino. Away from all residential areas and businesses. This is out in the middle of a field out here in the Brookshire area, the Brookshire Katy area. It looks like firefighters are getting some progress in putting out the flames. You can see all the fire trucks lining up the nearby road and stretching out the cable, the fire hoses as well they could. Let's get an update on what the winds are doing for this fire. Let's get to Cheetah now. Cheetah, what can you tell us about the winds?
Hey, good morning, Ron. Well, you know what? We've been watching these all morning, and really, winds not a factor today. So at the lower levels of the atmosphere, winds are less than 10 miles per hour, and you can see these from all the airport sites. So they are coming in a little bit different than yesterday, more east, southeast winds, but again, less than 10 miles per hour. Now, you do have to think about where that airplane was traveling. So winds are going to be a little bit stronger there, but I don't think that's going to be the reason. You know, just like you said, we're learning more information and gaining more details here as we go this morning, but winds have not been an issue this morning, neither have visibilities. You know, this morning we had fairly clear skies. We did have some cloud cover from about 3 to maybe 8 o'clock this morning, but clouds have continued to break apart, so visibilities should not have been an issue. You know, a lot of times with these smaller planes, they can travel as low as 16,000 to 18,000 feet. Now, I don't know exactly, you know, when this took place, why this took place, but Ron, wind should not have been a factor, and visibilities are not an issue right now.
No, if anything, it was perfect flying conditions.
Yeah, if anything, you're exactly right. So I don't think in this case weather was a factor here, but we'll continue to survey it. I've been looking some of the smoke to see if that's visible on the radar, but the smoke should be traveling out of the southeast, more towards the northwest, but at this point, not an issue. And because the clouds have cleared, a lot of times those clouds can trap smoke, and you can really get some air quality problems at the lower levels of the atmosphere. But see, this morning, because that hasn't been a problem, those clouds cleared, that smoke should be able to lift in the atmosphere, and I think it's going to mix out pretty well, where maybe even air quality won't be a concern around that surrounding area.
So my question is are the winds playing any role in spreading the fire or fanning the flames?
Well, always at this point. So, well, yes. You know, so fire always does create its own wind, and at this point, as that smoke continues to move, it will move to the northwest. So that will be a concern. We need to watch that because obviously it's taking a little bit of time to completely put out the flames from this. But yeah, winds will drive that smoke and carry that towards the northeast, even as it continues to move up through the atmosphere. But at this point, because we do have mainly clear skies there, it should be able to mix out really well. So less than 10 miles per hour of wind should mix that out pretty well, just like we typically see during a normal day. But yeah, you'll probably be able to see that even crossing over potentially I-10. Smoke can lift up to about good 4,000 or 5,000 feet in the air. So I'm sure a lot of people will start to see that smoke in the air.
Yeah, well, as you said, it doesn't look like the weather played a factor here because it was perfectly clear skies this morning. So we don't want to sit here and just put out any theories about why this plane crashed. It's just too early. We don't know, and we don't know if it was taking off or trying to land at the nearby airport. Again, the good news is that there are no serious injuries, there are no fatalities, and that is great news when you look at the destruction that we have before us here that Air 11 is flying over. A number of emergency vehicles out there. Their issue right now is trying to put out this fire, and we assume if there was anybody, if anybody was injured at all, hopefully they'll already been taken to the hospital if that was even needed. But again, if you're just joining us, this is the area of Brookshire, Katy area. This is on FM 2855 north of Morton Road. A small plane crash. It's, as you can see, it's not the smallest of planes, but it is a small plane. And for whatever reason, it came down this morning near Henriksen Jet Center. Obviously, the investigation with plane crashes are always lengthy and extensive. So we're not going to guess as to what happened here, but obviously this is the result of what happened. And again, the good news is no serious injuries, no fatalities, and far away from any homes or businesses out in the middle of this field near Morton Road in the Katy area. As Air 11 is zooming out, you can see the length that they've had to extend those fire hoses from the nearby road, and all those fire trucks lining that nearby road. As you zoom out, you can see it's nothing but fields out here in this area, this undeveloped area of the Katy area. As you know, so much development going on there right now. Again, if you're just joining us, this is a small plane crash in the Katy area, north of Morton Road. No serious injuries, no fatalities, and it looks like firefighters have made a lot of progress. You don't see a lot of smoke going up into the air anymore. We understand there were 21 people on board. That's a lot of people that were on board. 21 people were on board. 3 crew members. We understand one injured, but a lot of people were on this jet. As we try to get more information for you, but 21 people on board, including 3 crew members, 1 injured. Let's give you a better look at the area that we're talking about right now. Let's, if we can, put a map up there to give you a better idea of what we're talking about. We're trying to put a map together for you in case you're unfamiliar with that area of Brookshire and Katy. But the good news here is no serious injuries. 1 person hurt of 21 people on board this plane. And again, it was far away from homes and businesses out in the middle of this field. We don't know what caused it to go down, and we don't know if it was leaving the nearby airport or landing. All right, here's a map of the area to give you a better view. The area near this executive airport, this Henriksen Jet Center, Houston Executive Airport. So you can see the landing strip there near 2855. And again, this is north of Morton Road. And as we go back to the live pictures, or is this video now? I think this is video from a few minutes ago. Oh, it's live. Okay, these are live pictures from Air 11. Okay, so still a significant amount of flames left as firefighters hose it down. As we heard from Cheetah Craft earlier, the weather conditions were perfect for flying today, but maybe the winds might be fanning the flames as they do. Firefighters struggling to put it out. And if you're just joining us, there's been a small plane crash, but not the smallest of planes, because 21 people were on board, including 3 crew members, and 1 person was hurt. We understand there are no serious injuries, and the great news that there are no fatalities, but a lot of people on board this small jet, 21 people. This is on FM 2855 north of Morton Road, near Henriksen Jet Center in the Katy, Brookshire area, away from homes and businesses. Cheetah, as you were saying, it was the perfect flying conditions this morning, though.
These really were. That's why I'm actually I've been trying to scan some of our cameras to see what it may have looked like, but I don't think the visibilities were an issue. We had 0 low-level cloud cover earlier this morning. We didn't have any fog. I would say the winds were really relatively light overnight, and even through our midday, it really has partly cloudy skies, but even most of the cloud cover is again not low. So at this point, I do not think weather conditions were going to be an issue. Now, looking at the smoke, we were talking about that, winds out of the southeast. So east southeast winds are going to drive some of that smoke, like you were saying, out of the Brookshire area towards the northeast. So if you are in Austin County, Washington County, maybe portions of northwestern Waller County, you'll probably see some of that smoke drifting your way. However, Ron, I will say these clouds really did break by 8 o'clock this morning, and so if anything, the good news with some of this smoke is it's going to be able to lift up and out of the atmosphere from these low levels. So air quality, a lot of times when we look at smoke, a lot of times cloud cover can trap some of that. I don't see that as an issue. I would just say that if you do see some of this smoke, again, portions of northwest Waller County, maybe portions of western Waller County into Austin County, that would be the direction that this would be traveling, because winds are out of the east, but they're calm. In fact, right now, from Sugar Land, the airport side out of Tomball, and even out of Katy, winds are coming in around 5 miles per hour. So really pretty calm conditions across the area.
Yeah, but the firefighters have to deal with all the jet fuel still remaining in that fuselage there, and It does appear like they're making some progress.
And you're right, and see, fire makes their own wind, and it sometimes can make it really difficult to get a handle on. A lot of times when we've even just covered home fires, because it does spark its own wind, and it'll drive the fire in different directions, it can be a little bit more difficult to get its handle on. But at this point, it is moving northwest, and the winds are relatively calm.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're just joining us, a small plane crash in the Brookshire-Katy area. This is on FM 2855 north of Morton Road, north of Houston Executive Airport, Henriksen Jet Center. 21 people were aboard this jet, including 3 crew members, 1 person hurt. And from the DPS, the great news that there are no serious injuries, no fatalities, which is amazing when you look at that destruction down there. And you see what firefighters are having to deal with. We don't know at this point if this plane was arriving in the Houston area or was leaving the Houston area, if it was approaching that runway or about to leave it. But as Cheetah was saying, the weather conditions were perfect for flying today. They continue to be. And no reason to do any conjecture on what may have caused this crash, but it might be safe to say that you could rule out the weather. But again, this is great news in that there's no fatalities and no serious injuries, and it was away from any of the homes and businesses in that area of Katy and Brookshire. And as you know, there are so many businesses and so many new developments in that area as it continues to grow. It's great that this happened away from all of that. Firefighters still on the scene. They've been on the scene for quite a while now, trying to put out the flames. But again, there's all that jet fuel they have to contend with as well. You got white smoke, and you have that really, really thick black smoke still rising from the wreckage. A number of emergency vehicles lining the road perpendicular to this one, stretching out the water hoses as far as they can to put out the flames. So if you're just joining us, there's been a small plane crash. This is the Katy, Brookshire area. As you can see, the firefighters trying to pull the hose off to the other side of the plane. On the left, there's the map showing that area of the Houston Executive Airport. And just north of that runway is where the crash took place. The good news is no serious injuries. 1 person has been hurt. 21 people on board this jet. And no fatalities, which is fantastic news when you look at this destruction here. Weather conditions were good for flying, but obviously the wind's now fanning the flames, and the jet fuel still remaining on the site as firefighters work to put it out and try not to injure themselves. Still a level of danger out there for the firefighters. The Waller County Sheriff confirming that there's no major injuries, 1 minor injury. That's the word we got from the DPS as well. A number of agencies out there trying to put out the fire now. Obviously, there's going to be a lengthy investigation by the NTSB. Those take weeks and months, and then there's a preliminary report that might give us a better idea of what caused this plane crash. Okay, if you're just joining us, we have to tell you that there's been this breaking news, still developing right now, in the Katy, Brookshire area. There's been a small plane crash, 21 people on board, 3 of them crew members, 1 person injured. And we're getting word that there are no serious injuries and no fatalities, which at this point you would have to say is miraculous when you look at this wreckage. And this is an area in the Katy, Brookshire area north of Morton Road on 2855. There's the map there on the left part of your screen. And you can see the runway. And this wreckage appears to be just north of that. We don't know if the plane was taking off or arriving. We don't know where it was going or where it was coming from. But we do know that 21 people were on board and no serious injuries, just one person hurt. Cheetah, what can you tell us about the winds right now?
Okay, well, winds are mostly calm, and what I've been looking here for you is areas just to the northwest, because the direction of our winds this morning are east and out of the southeast, and they've been shifting pretty much overnight into this morning. So areas like Pattison, Clemens, these are areas just northwest of Brookshire. Now we're still talking about Waller County, right on the cusp to Austin County, and these are areas that could start to see smoke. So when you're looking at winds out of the east, southeast, that's going to be pushing that smoke to the west or even northwest direction. And again, areas northwest of Brookshire would be Pattison, potentially maybe even Sunnyside. You may even see some of the smoke. Areas just north of the I-10 area or towards, or just north of 90. These are areas that are going to be looking at the potential of seeing some of that smoke. I will tell you the good news about this, even though it's taken a little bit of time for firefighters to get their handle on this, the winds are calm. So at the surface, we haven't seen winds over 10 miles per hour. Now, of course, once you travel in the higher levels of the atmosphere, winds are going to be a little bit more. But at this point, all the airport sites are checking in almost around 5 miles per hour from Katy into Tomball. That's just the same as you head into Austin County. So the east-southeast winds are going to drive that smoke, again, towards places like Pattison, Clemens, Sunnyside. Those are areas in northwest Waller and Austin County. So those will be the areas that potentially see some of that smoke, and we'll continue to monitor the air quality as well. But because the clouds broke so early this morning, most of that smoke should be able to lift and mix out well out of the atmosphere. I don't see that being trapped and air quality being a concern at this point. Now, because winds are calm, it is going to take it a little bit longer for that to completely clear out. And you can still see the flames in the fire, so they don't have a complete handle on that. But it's interesting because winds are so calm. Now, working with plenty of fire crews in the past, it doesn't matter what type of fire it is, you know, even a house fire, and at this point, you know, with the plane, because fire can create their own wind, that's probably what's making it so difficult, because weather conditions, it's not impacting this at all. And for flying, you know, like we've been saying, Ron, really you would look at a day like today and you'd say perfect weather conditions. Visibilities weren't a concern. Winds were mostly calm. You know, I can't, you know, even speculate what could have been the issue here, but as far as getting the fire out, winds are mostly calm. In fact, look at, you know, the surrounding trees. And the grass, you don't even see anything waving. I mean, the winds are not an issue at this point. The only thing that will be an issue with is how quickly some of this can work out. The thing that winds can help with after you see all the smoke is helping to mix it out of the atmosphere, so you don't get those air quality concerns.
Well, dissipating that smoke is a good thing,
That's
obviously.
right.
Yeah, and the fact that we don't have high winds right now. But it was, as you said, perfect weather for flying this morning. Checking Twitter, we've got a tweet from the Atascocita Fire Department. They're saying that a set track Texas bus is en route to the plane crash near Houston Executive Airport. According to their tweet, initial reports indicate all crew and passengers were able to exit the plane, and that fits with everything else we've been hearing. Now, SETRAC is the Southeast Texas Regional Advisory Council, and they help with fires and getting injured people out of an area. But what the Atascocita Fire Department is saying jives with all the other information that we've been getting from the DPS and the Waller County Sheriff, that there were no serious injuries and no fatalities. One person was injured, from what we understand, but no serious injuries in this plane crash. As Air 11 circles this wreckage, we get a view from the other side of the plane. Yeah, firefighters have a lot to deal with here, because while the winds may not be hurting what they're doing, there's a lot of jet fuel still left potentially on this plane. Again, we don't know where this plane was coming from. We don't know if it was leaving Houston or arriving from some other location. But you would think with the runway nearby, it was either taking off or just arriving. But 21 people were on board this jet, and miraculously, no one was killed and there are no serious injuries. Now it's just left for all the firefighters and investigators, the firefighters to obviously try to put the fire out and secure the scene, and they're getting help from other agencies in the area as they converge on this this part of Brookshire and Katy to put out the flames and make this area safe out there. The other bit of good news was that this was far away from homes and businesses, far enough away. So if something like this happens, you want it far away from neighborhoods and businesses, obviously, but of course you don't want it to happen at all. Again, if you're just joining us, a small plane crash, but not the smallest of planes, because 21 people were on board this jet when it went down. But the great news is there are no serious injuries, only one person hurt that we know of, and no fatalities. Firefighters continue to try to put out the flames. There's obviously a lot of jet fuel still left on this, at this wreckage scene. Now, I can't tell if that's a road or a runway that it lays across, but firefighters are there and they're extending their hoses as far as they can from like looks like maybe 2 blocks away to the road that's perpendicular to this one. On the left, you can see the map of the Houston Executive Airport where this happened, or near the area where it happened. If you look at that runway on the left, it appears this plane crash happened just north of that runway. We're still trying to gather as much information as we can for you in this developing story. Now, we understand the Waller County Office of Emergency Management and the Sheriff Department are responding to this plane crash. This is their tweet saying that it involves an MD-80 aircraft that was taking off from the airport and heading north. Early reports indicate that all 19 passengers and crew safely exited the aircraft with a report of 1 injury. So this is from the Office of Emergency Management at Waller County. This is their tweet. They're saying there was 19 passengers and the crew all safely exited the aircraft with a report of 1 injury. Obviously, they're telling everybody to avoid this area of FM 2855 north of Morton Road. But again, this is coming from the Waller County Office of Emergency Management. They're saying this plane crash was involving an MD-80 aircraft. And they say it was taking off from the airport, heading north. And indeed, that is north of the airport there. And they say all 19 passengers and crew safely exited the aircraft with just a report of 1 injury.
And hello everyone, I'm Reka Mutaraj joining Ron Trevino for this breaking news. Ron, we were just looking at a couple of reports coming in, and this plane is actually registered to an investment firm in the Spring area, but the aircraft is not available for public tracking. So basically the owner or the operator of this plane asked for this plane not to be tracked. So it's really kind of unclear what the flight path was. But that's what we've learned so far, that this is registered to, again, an investment firm in Spring. But we do not know the name of that firm, and we, as you know, we still don't know the people who were on that flight. We just know that they made it off safely, which is pretty incredible when you see what's left of the plane.
So it's a miracle if you look at that wreckage, to think that anybody made it off that plane safely.
And they've been battling those flames. The crash happened just after 8 o'clock this morning, and that's when it was reported. So trying to put out those flames for quite some time, but you can imagine a lot of those components and parts on the plane, pretty flammable, and conditions are good, but putting those flames out is going to be tough. It's going to take a little while longer at least.
Yeah, we've got the map on the left to try to give you a better idea of the area that we're talking about here. Our Google Maps. But it's just, look at that wreckage and the fact that everybody made it out. That's the thing that strikes me the most about this whole thing. That they were able to safely exit the plane and with just 1 injury.
And 1 minor injury at that. Yeah, we're not dealing with a serious issue. You usually see a ton of ambulances. You'll see a lot of firefighters there. You're hoping for the best, and that's truly what happened here. Like Ron has been mentioning, this is not really the smallest of planes. We had, 19 people on the plane plus 3 crew members, is that correct?
21 all told, if
Okay.
what we're hearing from the DPS and the Waller County Sheriff's Office is correct. So 19 passengers plus the crew. And a number of fire departments are responding. We understand Atascocita, through their tweet, we understand that they're on their way with SETRAC.
And we've reported David Gonzalez on the way on the ground to get a closer look at all of this.
So you say this happened around 8 o'clock this morning?
So this is near the airport in Waller County. It's north of the Houston Executive Airport, but it is in Waller County, again near Morton Road and FM 2855. Atascocita Fire Department tweeting some information out there saying ambulance is en route to the plane crash near Houston Executive Airport. Again, initial reports indicate all crew and passengers were able to exit the plane. Pretty miraculous when you look at this. But you've been talking a lot about conditions. I've been listening in, and Cheetah had mentioned the weather too. This is a beautiful day to fly, and we don't know what caused this plane to crash, but the weather is perfect for flying conditions. It was clear, it was sunny, good visibility. So really unclear as to the cause of, what pushed this plane to go down. But
no, I mean, we're not going to sit here and do any kind of conjecture on that, but I think it might be safe to rule out the weather at this point, because it's just perfect weather this morning, and it continues to be like that all week long. Who knows? But the most important thing, obviously, is everybody made it out, and nobody was seriously hurt. Only one minor injury, and no fatalities. Again, the latest we understand, this was an MD-80 aircraft. This is coming from the Waller County Office of Emergency Management, an MD-80 aircraft that was taking off from the airport, and it was heading north. We don't know exactly where it was heading, but it was heading north. And obviously, they want everybody to avoid that area of 2855 north of Morton Road in the Katy, Brookshire area. So if you're just joining us, small plane crash. Waller County is investigating. A number of agencies are out there trying to put out the fire. 21 people were on board this plane, an MD-80 that was leaving the airport there and heading north when this crash happened. The great news is that there were no fatalities. There were no serious injuries, only a report of one injury, a minor injury. And now it's the process of trying to put out the flames. It looks like they're making a lot of progress in that. And then will come the lengthy NTSB investigation, the federal investigation into what caused this plane to go down. May have been some kind of mechanical issue. We don't know at this stage. But the weather was perfect this morning. We do know that, and it continues to be perfect outside. There you can see all the fire trucks lining up that road nearby, staying a safe distance away and extending their fire hoses as much as they can to get to the crash site. I don't see any more black smoke, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't really see.
Yeah,
if we take a
they had to
look.
contend with so much jet fuel, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they've made a lot of progress in that.
And it's possible they got the flames out. I don't see any flames popping up right now, but there will still, of course, be hot spots anytime you're putting out fires like this.
Yeah. And for a small plane, this is a sizable plane.
Yes, this is.
So just to move this wreckage and do the entire operation, that's going to be quite an operation. and all the cranes they're going to need and everything else as they try to figure out just what happened, what caused this plane to go down, just as it was leaving the airport heading north this morning.
So as firefighters are getting a handle on this, let's send it over to Cheetah Craft with a look at the weather conditions right now. What are folks out there facing out in Waller County?
Let me tell you, I have been able to almost map this down, even on our satellite image here, to see exactly the sky conditions that they've been dealing with. And those clouds broke so early over this exact area. I mean, they are dealing with clear skies, calm winds. Now, winds over this exact area, so we're talking right in between Katy and Brookshire, just north. So just barely on the brink there between Waller County and portions of Harris County, but just to the west of. So Waller County, winds are around 5 miles per hour. Really even getting into the exact location where this plane is. It's been like that over about the past hour and a half. So I was looking at our satellite image to see if even cloud cover over the past couple of hours has changed, and it hasn't. Now the winds are out of the east here, so winds are going to drive this smoke from east to west, and that's going to take it right over places towards Pattison. If you're familiar with Wharton County or Waller County, this is where we're talking about. In Waller County, just north of Brookshire, it's heading towards Pattison, potentially towards Clemens. That's a little further north, but we have a due east wind right over this this area, and that's going to again take it right towards the Pattison area, potentially towards Clemens. It's just north of I-10, and skies have been clear. So the only thing that we'll need to monitor for this area would be any change in air quality. And a lot of times, even when we have these clear skies and calm winds, air quality can be a concern, but especially when you have smoke building in. So that would be the only thing. Now, we don't have any clouds that would trap some of the smoke, but it does look like obviously they're getting a much better handle on this, which is really good news. And
Yeah, that's fantastic news.
but low level winds, they are calm right now, and skies are completely clear over this area. When you get a little further closer to the coast, there's some cloud cover that's in place, but I mean, even dialing our satellite image back, it is just, these clouds broke just after 7 a.m. So even from 8 o'clock this morning, they've been dealing with clear skies and calm winds.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good news for everybody involved, especially the firefighters, as they continue to try to put out any kind of hot spots with this plane crash wreckage site. They're still dousing it with flames and flame retardant. If you're just joining us, there's been a plane crash in Waller County. There you can see at the left one of the tweets from the Waller County Office of Emergency Management that we spoke about earlier, saying that they're responding to a plane crash at Houston Executive Airport involving an MD-80 aircraft that was taking off from the airport and heading north. And there are reports indicating that all 19 passengers and crew safely exited the aircraft with a report of just one injury, and obviously avoid this area. And we're bringing up tape on the right-hand side of your screen now, video from earlier this morning, when the flames were shooting up into the sky. But fantastic news that there were no fatalities and only one minor injury. They were able to exit the plane safely. There's a look at the rear of the plane.
Now, can we get confirmation that those images, can we get confirmation those images are from moments ago, correct? Or is this live on the right? This is images from Air 11. I just want to make sure that okay, these are live. Okay, so we're about to give you some ground video right now. So yeah, those are live. And we were talking about those flare-ups and those hot spots. You know, about a minute or two ago, we saw everything we just saw smoke. It looked kind of clear, and then you see those flames come up again. So again, this is live video from Air 11. Right there. So this is it. Yeah, so so that was from a little bit earlier in the day. Okay,
Yeah,
so ground video on the left. Is that our crew? David Gonzalez is our reporter on the ground, so it looks like they've set up right by the airport there.
Yeah, you can see all the firefighters getting behind the tail of the plane now, getting to the other side, trying to make sure all the hot spots are taken care of, making sure that nothing flares up again. And this could take quite a while, because even when you think the fire's out, there could be some flare-ups, especially when you're dealing with jet fuel. and a plane of this size. But to catch you up, we understand from the Sheriff's Department and the Office of Emergency Management, this aircraft, this MD-80, was leaving the airport this morning, heading north when this crash took place. And now this is video from earlier this morning when the flames were fierce and firefighters were just arriving. But the fantastic news is that there's no fatalities and just one minor injury out of 21 people that were on board. There's 19 passengers and 3 crew members. Okay, we understand that our reporter on the scene, David Gonzalez, is there now. David, can you hear us? What can you tell us?
Hey, hi, how are you guys doing? It's definitely a very busy scene out here. We're on the corner of Morton Road and FM 2855. We are just east of the Houston Executive Airport. And when we arrived about 5-10 minutes ago, you could see the plume of smoke into this brush wooded area. From where we're standing, we cannot see the actual plane crash, but we can see a lot of law enforcement. We're talking about Waller County Sheriff's Office, we're talking about DPS, and as well as a lot of firefighters from a lot of agencies, including Tascasita, Cy-Fair, Houston. We've seen them show up by the masses. Right now, the big thing that we can see from where we're standing right now is traffic control. There's a lot of people driving by this intersection. FM 2855 near the airport is a very busy thoroughfare for trucks and semis. So right now they're trying to control the traffic in this area because right now emergency crews are trying to make their way here to the scene. But the good news from where I'm standing at least is we can no longer see that dark plume of smoke that was coming from that plane crash. As we've mentioned, that plane went down here just east of the airport, and it's a very scary sight when you see those images from Air 11 and also from our other crew from the ground where that dark plume of smoke and flames coming from that plane crash. Luckily, we can say that the 19 people aboard and also the 3 crew members aboard that flight all made it out safely. Right now, we have no reports of any serious injuries. I just got off the phone with DPS not too long ago, and they say that they will be providing us with a media update here at the intersection that we're at here shortly. Right now, that sergeant is talking to investigators and other crews inside near the wreckage to figure out exactly what possibly led to this plane going down here near the Houston Executive Airport. But as I can tell you right now, a lot of activity out here from different agencies working to, 1, keep the public safe from this area, but 2, get emergency crews here as needed to help control the situation and battle the flames of this fire. From where we're standing, we cannot see any smoke coming from the wreckage area. It's, I want to say, about a half mile at least from where we're standing, but Air 11 has a better vantage point. From where we're standing, like I said, little to minimal smoke seen from this area, so that's a good sign that they're getting control of this fire. But the good thing to report right now is that everyone on board, 21 people, are all safe. Back to you guys.
And David, it's pretty miraculous because we've been talking about it this morning that this is quite a large plane. There's a good number of people on board, and there's really nothing left of it now. It's pretty flattened. Those flames are pretty big just a few moments ago. But from our vantage point, when we're seeing your shot from the ground and we're also on air looking live from Air 11, you can see it's a sizable plane. And it's really miraculous that everyone got off board safely. So that's pretty incredible. You were talking about this being a high traffic area. Obviously, it's because it's blocked off and stuff. I know you just arrived. Do you see people kind of trying to get in from the scene, maybe family members, people who know the folks who are on board, try to get closer to the scene of this accident?
From right now, the priority of the law enforcement here on the scene is just making sure the road keeps moving. We have not seen people stop by. They're asking people just to keep moving. That, you know, people want to be onlookers and stop and see what's happening, but authorities here on the ground are making sure that people are out of the way of emergency trucks that keep arriving here at the scene. From where we're standing right now, we do not see any family members, anything like that. Right now, the priority is making sure that they get a control on the flames of this wreckage caused by this wreckage, and as well treating anyone who may have been hurt. Right now, as we've been reporting, only minor injuries or no serious injuries that we can report. We do know that Atascocita Fire Department is sending their AMBUS. That's a big bus that holds people during big mass casualty events. Luckily, this is not one of those, but it holds people. They get the treatment they need, and they will transport those people as one unit. We know that unit is on the way.
Okay, sounds like we lost David Gonzalez's audio. But as you look at the live video now from Air 11, it looks like firefighters are laying down booms across the gully under the fuselage of this plane wreckage.
No worries, let me know.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it looks like, David, can you hear us again?
Okay, I think we might have lost.
Yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, sorry, you dropped out for just a moment, but we're going to keep the lines of communication open. We're kind of going back and forth, but Ron, you were just commenting about the booms that they were laying down.
Yeah, it looks like they're laying down those long white booms. They're laying. It looks like there might be some kind of gully or something under the fuselage of that plane. So they're trying to keep whatever jet fuel or other toxic materials from spreading down that gully. But as you said, David, I mean, it's miraculous that nobody was seriously injured here. And now they're saying that's an MD-80 aircraft, and looking up what we know about MD-80 aircrafts, it's a twin-engine, short to medium-range, narrow-body airliner with a capacity of 172 passengers, at least in one model. I don't know about this particular model, but we do know that 21 people were there and were on this plane, 19 passengers and 3 crew members.
And then something that I can point out is that the road that fire crews are going down seems to be under construction, so it's definitely not an easy task for these firefighters and fire crews that are arriving to the scene. As you can see here live, we have what it looks to be construction workers and people that are kind of plowing the road, clearing the road, backing their way out, trying to make as much space for these fire crews and also law enforcement who have arrived here at the scene. So right now it's all about making sure this area is cleared, because from Area 11 it looks to be a very high brush area. We do not know how easy it is for these firefighters to get into the actual wreckage to try to battle these flames. From where we're standing, there's little to light smoke. Area 11 probably has the best vantage point at this point. Up in the distance, you could just see masses and masses of law enforcement officials here at the scene, making sure that the flames and everything is under control. But most importantly, everyone who was on board, those 21 people, are safe and they get the medical attention that they need.
Absolutely, and it looks like what it crashed over was basically a dirt road, and there are paved roads nearby, but that's just simply a dirt road that it crashed over.
And pretty incredible that they were able to contain this fire as quickly as they did, considering the jet fuel and the other flammable substances and materials that could be on board, because there's a bunch of trees there. Those trees could have caught fire. The brush could have caught fire. I mean, this could have been a much worse situation, and thankfully the folks on board were able to get out with their lives, really, and one minor injury. This is all pretty incredible. But we're watching, it looks like the flames are out. Again, as we've noted, there are hot spots usually, and firefighters are going to stay on scene until it is all said and done. But on the left now, in that smaller box, this is a look at the model of the airplane, an MD-80 aircraft, and it's quite a large plane. We're not talking about, when we hear about these smaller plane crashes at these smaller airports, we're talking about the small 2-seater Cessnas or the 6-seaters. This is a sizable aircraft, and you mentioned that it seats more than 100 people.
Up to 172 passengers, at least one model does. But again, it's a twin-engined, short to medium-range, narrow-body airliner is what it is.
And this plane is registered to an investment firm that's based in Spring. At least it comes back to an address in Spring. The aircraft was not available for public tracking, so we know that it left the airport. It was traveling north before it crashed, but per the owner-operator of the plane, we were not able to publicly track this.
And we've got a preliminary statement now from the FAA, a McDonnell Douglas MD-87. McDonnell Douglas MD-87 rolled through a fence and caught fire in a field while attempting to depart from Houston Executive Airport in Houston, Texas, shortly after 10 a.m. local time today. Preliminary information indicates that 21 people were aboard and that all of them evacuated safely. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board will investigate. The NTSB will be in charge of the investigation. So we have some new information there. First of all, according to the FAA, this was an MD-87.
Which seats up to 130 airline passengers.
Yes, still a very sizable plane. They say it rolled through a fence. It caught fire in the field while trying to depart from this airport in the area of Brookshire and Katy. And it happened shortly after 10 o'clock today. And again, more confirmation that 21 people on board and all of them evacuated safely, which is miraculous, and we all should be thankful for that. But obviously the plane could not be saved. And again, the Federal Aviation Administration, National Transportation Safety Board, they're going to investigate as is common, and the NTSB will be in charge of the investigation. And obviously, you know, as we know from covering so many plane crashes, these investigations, they can last for months, if not longer.
So that is new information that we're just getting in now, that Ron was just saying this is a McDonnell Douglas MD-87 plane. You can have about 130 passengers on board this type of plane. And we now know that the plane during takeoff actually rolled through a fence, and that's when it caught fire in that field. So it looks like they were on the ground. They were able to get those folks out of there quickly. 21 people, one person with minor injuries. Pretty amazing when you're looking at these images now of what's left of the plane, and pretty incredible that firefighters were able to contain it and put those flames out. It looks like, you know, within the hour really, because this was reported just after 10 o'clock and we're approaching, what, 11:35 now. So this was a pretty miraculous scene when you look at the damage there.
And also, if you're looking what the FAA is saying,
yeah.
Can you even call this a plane crash? It was rolling through a fence and caught fire. I mean, obviously it's a mishap, but it wasn't exactly a crash. I mean, it didn't fall from the sky. It rolled through a fence and caught fire, and according to this statement anyway.
All that white stuff there is the water, the foam mixing, all of the chemicals, the jet fuel, everything that's come off that plane. There's really nothing left of that plane except the tail.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Cheetah, obviously the weather is helping out the firefighters today.
It is. You know, I tell you, the weather conditions were perfect for flying today and really for putting out a fire. We're talking less than 5-mile-per-hour winds. In fact, I've been dialing our satellite picture back just to even see the cloud cover from this morning, and clouds broke so early. We have clear skies right over this area. So you can see in the small box on your screen, I'm going to zoom in to exactly where we're talking here. Now notice there's Katy, there's Brookshire, and then just north of 90. Now when you see the direction of the winds, that's indicating where winds are traveling. So these winds are traveling from the east to the west. So even looking at the smoke coming from what was the fire, now that they've put that out, what that smoke is going to do, it's going to travel, let's say, a little bit closer to places like Pattison or maybe potentially Clemens. I don't know if it'll get that far, just because when we have clear skies, that smoke is basically going to travel due north in the atmosphere. Because of the winds, it'll travel west, but it's going to break apart pretty quickly. We don't have anything trapping that. A lot of times when we have cloud cover, you see that smoke linger towards the surface for hours and hours. But when you have clear skies like this, these clouds broke so early, that smoke is going to be able to lift in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Now let me show you some of the winds so you can kind of see on a bigger perspective what we're dealing with across the area. So our winds shifted overnight and they're out of the east-southeast. But really when we're talking about right over here towards Brookshire, Katy, remember this is right on the cusp between Harris and Waller County. In Waller County, these winds are primarily due out of the east. So this is traveling, taking that smoke from the east. But I mean, even Ron, Reka, look at these winds across the board. Anywhere across the area, less than 10 miles per hour, but specifically over this location, less than 5. So it's been great news for the firefighters. Ideal flying conditions at that. Visibilities were not a concern at all today. I would even say sometimes when smoke like this starts to move across the atmosphere, my immediate reaction is air quality. How is this going to impact the residents all around the area? At this particular time, I am not concerned about that. Just because we have clear skies, that smoke is going to be able to lift, and then natural mixing throughout the day is going to help mix some of that smoke out. Also, a lot of times when we have winds and some fire, you think, could it spark another fire? Because fires, and you talk about the winds, can create more activity. Not in this case. We're extremely saturated. We're great with our rainfall totals. This is not a concern really across the area at all. So great news for the firefighters in this location, but of course still a lot of questions as to what happened, what the reasons are, and all of that, because weather was not an issue today. I can tell you that.
Yeah, ideal flying conditions, but it looks like this plane never made it off the ground. It rolled through a fence at Houston Executive Airport, and that's when it ran into that field. It caught fire shortly after 10 o'clock today. But you're right, those conditions good for firefighters as they were trying to put out those massive flames that we saw, shortly after it caught fire.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a day. I mean, you hate to look at something like this and say count your blessings, but count your blessings, because this could have been a lot worse. With 18 passengers and 3 crew members, they all exited the plane safely. 1 minor injury, we understand. So no serious injuries, no fatalities, which is hard to believe when you look at that wreckage right there.
Yeah, kudos to the crew. On planes, that they are, in charge of your safety and making sure all the passengers are safe. And there were 18 passengers on the plane, 3 crew members. It looks like everyone did the right thing and got off the plane safely.
Yeah, and you could get injured just trying to exit a plane if you don't do it properly.
And there was 1 minor injury, as we've been mentioning. We don't know how that person was injured, so very much a possibility. But so thankful that those folks are safe when you look at what's left of this plane.
And again, the word from officials is avoid this area. And we're talking about this area, FM 2855 north of Morton Road and the Katy, Brookshire area near the Houston Executive Airport. They want you to avoid that area. They've got a lot of emergency crews out there still trying to make sure these hot spots are out at this wreckage site and attending to anybody who may be the person who was with the minor injuries. They're having to deal with the passengers, maybe getting them to where they need to go. They have a lot of work to do there still, and they want you to avoid that area. Again, it's FM 2855 north of Morton Road near Houston Executive Airport.
Yeah, we saw David Gonzalez, a reporter on the ground in that area. He said, that picture to the left is where their camera is, and said that's typically a high traffic area for folks, so they're just kind of keeping cars moving, keeping folks moving as emergency crews tend to this situation here.
Yeah, they've set up booms in that little gully there near that dirt road to try to keep the flame retardants and whatever other chemicals and jet fuel from spreading down further down the road.
Yeah, they don't want that runoff getting into any water sources or anything like that. So keeping the scene as contained as possible, and it looks like they're doing a good job, and the weather really is on their side today.
And of course there's going to be that massive investigation into what happened, and then just pulling the wreckage from this area is going to be a massive job too, because this was not the smallest of planes, a twin-engine, short to medium range, narrow-body airliner that could seat over 100 people. Yeah, it
seats up to 130 passengers. Obviously, not that many people on board. We have 18 passengers, 3 crew members.
So that's a sizable commuter plane there. So that's going to be a Herculean effort to get that wreckage removed and put into some hangar somewhere.
Okay. And again, we're hearing from the FAA now, and this is their preliminary statement about what has happened in Waller County with this plane crash. McDonnell Douglas MD-87 aircraft, it rolled through a fence and caught fire in a field while attempting to depart from Houston Executive Airport. Technically in Houston, Texas, apparently shortly after 10 a.m. local time. Now, preliminary information indicates that 21 people were on board, all of them evacuated safely. The Federal Aviation Administration and National Transportation Safety Board will be investigating. The NTSB is in charge of this investigation, and that is pretty typical when you see plane crashes like this. So again, if you're just joining us, all of this taking place just after 10 o'clock today, when this plane rolled through a fence out of Houston Executive Airport into this field and caught fire. There were 21 people on board. That's including 3 crew members, but they were all able to get off safely. They got out of that plane safely. There was one minor injury. We don't know exactly what the injury is, and we don't know how this person is doing, but when you look at what's left of this aircraft now, pretty incredible that it was just one minor injury in all of this. That aircraft burst into flames. Firefighters were on scene. They're still putting out hot spots. You can see them spraying. They've got water, they've got foam in situations like this, and of course, as Ron has been saying, laying out booms so they can kind of control the runoff from the jet fuel and all of the other potentially hazardous chemicals that are coming off of this scene here. But again, a pretty miraculous situation when you look at the size of this plane and how big those flames were, that no one was seriously hurt and there were no fatalities from this plane crash.
Truly amazing, truly amazing. Our reporter on the scene, David Gonzalez, they're keeping him a safe distance from the wreckage. But what can you tell us now, David?
Hey guys, I can tell you that fire crews continue to arrive as we speak. I could hear sirens right now coming in from the distance. Right now, the main priority from law enforcement that we keep talking to is just to keep traffic moving here on 2855 near Milton Road, and that's because they want to allow emergency crews the best and easiest access to this wreckage of this plane crash. Right now we are just east of the Houston Executive Airport, and that is where the plane rolled through a fence and crashed and caught fire. Luckily, the 18 passengers on board were able to get out, as well as 3 crew members. But here you see we have the Harris County Hazmat Response Team, as well as the Harris County Hazardous Materials Team arriving on the scene as we speak. And as we mentioned, the plane crash happened right after 10 o'clock, so it's been an hour and 45 minutes since this plane crash took place, and we still have fire crews arriving here to the scene. That shows the priority of these firefighters and law enforcement is to make sure that the wreckage, the flames, the fire is contained, but as well that everyone who was on board, those 21 people, are all okay. We are happy to report that those 21 people, no one received any serious injuries. I think we've said that at least one person received minor injuries, but when you look at this footage, when you look at these images of the plane crash, of the flames coming from that plane, you can just see how bad it is. But back out here live right now, traffic is moving here on 2855 and Morton Road. All the action is taking place behind us. We can't physically see that wreckage, but it's about a half-mile away, and the priority of these firefighters is to make it in as close as possible and provide the services that they can, and that is containing the fire and as well keeping everyone safe. Yeah,
and that's a tough job. As you point out, there's so many first responders out there trying to secure the scene, and they're urging desperately people avoid this area. Again, this is FM 2855 north of Morton Road. Thank you so much, David Gonzalez. We're also joined now by one of our investigative reporters from our investigative team.
You're welcome.
KHOU 11 Investigates. Jeremy Rogowski, you've been making some calls and trying to get more information about what happened and perhaps the plane and what the process is now.
Yeah, Ron and Reka, one of the things we do is to check the air traffic control traffic before, during, and after any incident like this. And oftentimes you expect to hear a lot of chatter, particularly when a plane goes down, between the tower and the aircraft. In this case, as of yet, we haven't found that. There was no apparent mayday call, no distress call. Let me walk you through a brief timeline of what we've been able to ascertain. Again, this is air traffic control traffic from the Executive Airport Tower. About 9:58 a.m., 9:58 and 27 seconds to be exact, the tower clears flight 987 or tail number 987 for departure. And there's some downtime there, and about 30 seconds later, the tower once again transmits to the aircraft saying, make sure you're above 1,200, meaning 1,200 feet. The tower indicates to the pilot that you may overfly a helicopter in the area. And about 15 seconds later, the pilot answers the tower saying, okay, that should be no problem. I'll keep a lookout for that. And then we don't hear anything for the next 3.5 minutes or so until the tower makes a blanket call to all aircraft saying, hold your position, I'm going to get a runway inspection. So again, 9:58, the aircraft that we've been covering now from Air 11 for the past hour or so gets cleared for departure. About 35, 40 seconds after that, the tower says, make sure you're above 1200. There's a helicopter in the area. The pilot responds saying that should be no problem, and I'll keep a lookout for that. And then it's radio silent, which is quite interesting. We don't hear a distress call. We don't hear your classic Mayday, Mayday, or anything of the like. And so obviously not a whole lot to go on from the radio tower traffic.
Can you tell us again who was talking about getting a check on the runway after this? You said something about
So
that.
yeah, about
Who was that?
10:03 or so, 10:03 this morning, the tower at Executive Airport transmits to all aircraft saying, hold your position, I'm going to get a runway inspection. And then about 45 seconds later, he reiterates that message, that being the tower at Executive Airport saying, we need to get another runway inspection. Obviously, I think it's safe to assume that they don't know what they have their hands on. They don't know if there's debris on the runway. If a part of the plane fell off, while it was disembarking and on takeoff, so they held everybody. And then I will add one more thing. At 10:08 a.m., another call from the tower came out saying runways are suspended at this time. But again, 9:58 cleared for departure. About a minute or so later, pilot says that should be no problem. I'll keep a look at and stay above 1,200 feet, and then we don't hear anything else.
And the preliminary statement from the FAA says that the plane rolled through a fence and then caught fire.
And we don't know how far it went. I wonder if Air 11 can pull back on the shot a little bit, because yes, if it rolled through a fence, I wonder how far away it got from the airport before it came to ultimately.
Maybe it never left the ground.
Yeah.
Well, what we don't know is what we don't know.
Yeah, we don't
correct?
know.
Exactly. But in terms of a Mayday call, saying we're having trouble, we need to make emergency landing, that doesn't appear to happen from the air traffic control archives that we've been monitoring, which would corroborate that initial FAA statement.
Well, let's see if we can get some more answers now. We're trying to get Houston Fire Department Captain Ronald Krasleski. Captain, can you hear us? Hello, Captain? Captain Krasleski with Houston
Yes,
Fire
sir.
Department, can you hear us? Hey, what can you tell us about
Yes,
what
sir.
you know about what happened here?
Honestly, I'm just finding out about the incident. I know it was a MD-80 that had an incident on takeoff. I see that the fire department's doing a great job on fire suppression and providing an exit path for those who can self-evacuate. With a fire of this nature, they use a firefighting foam to quickly put the fire out, suppress the vapors, and then go in and do a search and rescue of the aircraft to make sure all of the passengers are off the aircraft.
Captain, this is Rekha Motoraj with KHOU. I'm wondering, how do firefighters approach a fire like this when you're dealing with jet fuel and other chemicals? What are some of the tools in their toolbox? What are they using to put out the flames besides, the water and foam?
Right, that is going to be the agent of choice. Water alone will not put a fire out of this nature, so they have to use a mixture of Class B, what we call Class B foam, to actually cool all of the metals around the fire so the fire doesn't reignite. It quickly puts the fire out. It smothers the vapor so they don't quickly reignite. So that's the only type of agent of this type of fire that would put that fire out.
If you're looking at the
They
images,
keep it from reigniting.
and that, if you're looking at the images, of course, we're showing you images from Air 11, and right now Air 11 is showing images from where the runway is to where the plane is, so it's a couple hundred feet away, it appears. But the biggest thing is that this rolled into a field. There's a lot of trees around the plane, and of course that plane burst into flames. Pretty incredible that they were able to keep that fire under control. Are there, what are the specific techniques they have to use to make sure that this fire doesn't catch onto the trees and to the field?
Well, the pictures that I'm seeing right now on TV, the fire department did an excellent job of containing the actual fire to that site. I'm sitting there seeing that they kept it local to the area. Being off airport property, it looks like the fire department made a very quick response to the scene. I see they did supply lines to the aircraft, protected the exposures after they determined all passengers were off the plane. The images I'm seeing on TV right now, they did an excellent job.
Yeah, we're taking a wider view, and maybe we see the
skid marks.
The skid marks or the wheel marks of that plane. If FAA saying that apparently it came off the runway, hit a fence, and then caught fire.
Yeah, you definitely
Right,
see
yeah.
the tire marks coming off the runway onto the field and then kind of through the trees. So it definitely, I mean, it's hard for us to really tell because we're far away, but that's a few hundred feet.
Yeah, and Captain, how long will the firefighters have to remain on the scene to make sure there's no more hot spots? Are they going to be there all day, or how does that work?
Well, typically on a fire like that, they'll wait for the FAA will dispatch. There's a local division here that will come out and do investigations, and the fire department will stay on location and make sure that the fire doesn't reignite. And a lot of times they'll keep some people on location until the aircraft is removed, and that's in conjunction with the FAA and to make sure everything's safe for a company to come out and move that aircraft. And there's going to be, it's a hazardous spill too, so there's going to be a hazardous spill cleanup, so a company's going to have to come out and clean that area up.
Yeah, we saw that they were putting booms out there to keep the runoff contained. All right, anything else you can add, Captain?
No, I'm just, again, the video that I'm seeing on TV right now, the fire department did an excellent job of, not being on scene. Now, here at the airport division, we have special airport trucks that have 3,000 gallons of water, 400 gallons of foam for this. And then for them to do that with a supply line going through a dirt road, I'm very proud of what they did.
And how many agencies are out there? How many firefighters?
I really don't know. I heard it was Waller. Fire department responded. I don't know if they called out mutual aid, so I really don't know how many units were actually dispatched to the call.
Okay. Well, it's a massive undertaking for the firefighters and obviously for the investigators as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Captain. Captain
Well, thank you for
Ronald
asking me.
Krosleski with Houston Fire Department. Thank you so much. Now, when we took the wide shot, it looked to me, you could see the tire marks on the runway and then through the field. Did this plane slide down? It looked like maybe at least 100 yards.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it came a good way
It traveled.
away from
It
the
traveled
airport.
over that road and then stopped there and caught fire.
And hard to see now from Air 11, but when we were getting kind of the vantage point of the airport runway in relation to where this plane is, you could see, the runway is just to the left of where that dirt road is.
Okay,
And
it looks
so-
like we have the DPS about to say something to us. Let's listen in.
Little time. We still have one more that we're waiting on. We appreciate y'all waiting as long as you have. I understand we just want to wrap on everything before.
We're waiting a bit, but we'll be getting some word from state troopers about what happened and what course they take for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning that you can see some tire marks here, which means that they kind of went through a couple trees first. They went through the fence, and it appears that it ran through a couple trees before it came to its resting spot right there. But again, the folks on board, the 21 people on board, were able to get off pretty quickly. 3 of them were crew members, and one minor injury. And we've been showing you images of those flames, the fire that burst from that airplane, moments after this happened, and it's pretty incredible that they all got out.
It's a miracle that nobody was seriously injured, and nobody was seriously injured. Nobody was killed. One minor injury, but can you imagine being on that plane as it's going down the runway and it's just going across the fields, and then it must have been frightening.
And we don't want to speculate or assume anything, but I think, perhaps one of the reasons that this is not ending in fatalities is the plane never left the ground or didn't get much altitude, if anything. This obviously, and again, there was no monitoring air traffic control. There was no distress call that we've been able to find. There was no, I have mechanical failure, I have an engine out, I have something wrong, hydraulics went out. Whatever the myriad of mechanical things that can go wrong on a plane. Certainly the pilot, from what we've been able to monitor, never relayed that to our air traffic control. So ostensibly he's picking up speed, he's going down the runway, about to take off, and as you've been saying, we see skid marks. We see it roll through either a fence line and or a tree line, coming to a rest there. And so, you know, if there is a silver lining, that is it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of silver linings today. I mean, look at that wreckage. And then the weather was perfect, and with good conditions for the firefighters as well. If you're just joining us, there's been this, can you still call it a plane crash if it never left the ground? We don't know if it left the ground.
And it didn't necessarily plan to crash into anything.
Well,
so
it crashed into a fence and then caught fire.
Yeah.
It did crash into a fence and
That's
caught
true.
fire, and everybody on board safely exited the plane.
And it looks like the fire is out too. Right now, they're sort of in cleanup mode, right? So putting out those booms, trying to control the runoff from having to put out those flames. This was not a small aircraft. You hear about these plane crashes and incidents with smaller planes that take off from these smaller airports. But this was a sizable aircraft. It's an MD-87. And from what we've seen so far, it's designed to hold up to 130 passengers. And so it's a fixed wing, multi-engine plane. Luckily, not that many people on board, just 21 people on board, but all of them made it off safely. Only one minor injury reported. We still don't know who was on board the plane. We don't know where that plane was headed. And it all seemed to happen so fast because, as our investigative reporter Jeremy Rogalski was saying, there was no distress call. There seemed to be some conversation between air traffic control and the pilot, and everything seemed good to go. And then all of a sudden, you know, just seconds later, there seemed to be a call out from air traffic control telling other aircraft there, hey, you know, stay where you are, hold your position, we've got a situation. So everything seemed to happen within a matter of seconds. And again, this plane was cleared for takeoff just before 10 a.m. and then this happened just after. So all of this happening so quickly.
And again, a miracle that nobody was seriously hurt. Only one minor injury. 21 people aboard, 18 passengers, and 3 crew members. And now, and then you know, we'll be hearing from the DPS shortly.
And as we are approaching the 12 o'clock hour, we have been following breaking news for quite a while now. If you're just joining us, this was a plane crash that has happened in Waller County near the Houston Executive Airport. This is specifically in the Brookshire area. And what you're seeing is what's left of an MD-87 aircraft. It's just the tail there. Because we are looking at this plane crash that happened just after 10 o'clock. The Texas Department of Public Safety says there were 21 people on board. No one was seriously hurt. Now, we want to give you a better idea of, again, of where all of this has happened. FM 2855, this is just north of Morton Road. And again, this is Houston Executive Airport. This is a private airport that is close by.
And you are watching KHOU 11 News at noon, a live look from our photojournalists on the ground there. Let's listen to the DPS now.
Information officer. Of course, as you can see behind me, I have a huge support system behind me. Of course, with this county sheriff, emergency management entities, the fire chief, and a wealth of others. Today, I would like to start off by saying this is a good day. This is actually a day of celebration for a lot of people. So let me explain. Today, the Texas Department of Public Safety, the Waller County Sheriff's Office, and Waller Harris ESD 20 was called out to a scene of a plane crash right here in Waller County at FM 2855 and Morton. Once we arrived on scene, of course, we observed the plane in its state engulfed, and we were advised that, of course, all individuals on board the plane, all 18 passengers and 13 crew members survived. At this time, we're getting reports that 2 individuals were transported to the hospital for their injuries, and this plane was actually attempted to take off, but in a rolling state right here at the Houston Executive Airport here in Waller County, and never was able to take flight. The actual airplane rolled down the runway, struck an actual fence, and from there became disabled. Luckily, And we're thankful that all of the passengers and crew members were able to extract themselves, and that's when the first responders came in to go to work to extinguish the fire. So again, today is a good day for all, not only for the passengers and crew, but for this community and first responders. We do know that the plane was headed to Boston, leaving this airport, headed to Boston, and that's the information that we have at this time. We're not sure really why it caught on fire. Not sure if it was because it hit the structure, but we are waiting on the FAA, and they're going to be able to give us more information on the particulars of the actual crash. I would like to bring in our emergency management officials so they can speak onto the extinguishing of the fire. Boston. Possibly, I'm not sure. 18 passengers aboard, 3 crew members to include 2 pilots and of course one attendee. The youngest child that we reported is 10 years old.
Can you walk us through how the passengers were able to extract themselves out of the plane?
We don't know that at this time, but of course, again, however they extracted themselves, they're off, and no one's deceased. And man, that is an awesome feeling right now for us as first responders.
Again, Sergeant Woodward, thank you for you and your team for being here today in Waller County. What I want to do as the Waller County Emergency Management Coordinator, I want to thank all the responding agencies that came to our aid. Waller County is a very rural community, but we have a lot of partners that surround us. As you can see, we have Harris County, we have Fort Bend County, we have a number of fire departments in the area who have assisted us. Again, it's a blessing today that all passengers were out of the plane, and just very minor injuries that was stated before, just lower back pain and some respiratory issues. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Tim Gibson. He's the chief of the responding fire department that's handling this incident.
I'm Tim Gibson, Director of Waller Harris Emergency Services District 200. We're the provider out here for fire and EMS services across all of Waller County and part of Harris County. We have multiple service providers out here today. We actually did have multiple of our crew members in our fire departments that were responding that are also aircraft rescue firefighters and certified. They were able to get on scene, make a good assessment quickly. We did find that all passengers had self-extricated. We assisted them from the field where the plane ended up on the north side of Morton Road from the airport, and we were able to quickly get some of our off-road brush units out to the field and get the fire extinguished after substantial effort.
Do we know how far the plane traveled?
The planes and put out, you said it was
It was very difficult. It was fully involved, and we had to employ a lot of foam, and it took a lot of apparatus and a lot of joint efforts from our mutual aid partners as well as our own trucks and equipment.
Can you describe how they got off the plane and what their reaction?
They were stunned. They were very, very stunned, but they did all self-extricate. We can't tell you how they did that or in what method. And the plane was fully involved when we arrived.
And just describe the area where the plane came to land. For those passengers getting out, is it easy to walk around?
So there is a gravel driveway that goes out into that pasture, but it is very dense brush and pasture area out there where the plane ended up and came to rest.
Give us an idea of how surprising it is how nobody here was killed, only minor injuries. Is that what y'all expected when you arrived?
You know, ma'am, anytime you have a plane that doesn't make a landing on the runway like it should, we're always expecting the worst but hoping for the best. And today, we absolutely positively got the best outcome we could hope for on this incident.
So was the plane in one piece when it landed?
I couldn't tell you that right now, ma'am. No, ma'am.
When it broke apart?
I couldn't tell you that right now either.
But, sir, it never took off, right?
It was attempting a takeoff.
But did it go up?
Yeah, I do not believe so.
Did not go back.
Has the pilot explained what happened or what caused them not to take off? Was it across the field?
That's going to be coordinated between DPS, and I'll let them answer that.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
sir.
Right now, again, we're waiting on the FAA, and they're going to look at the particulars of that. Again, what I can tell you is the plane traveled approximately 500 feet on the runway, and then that's when the actual incident ensued. So once the FAA arrives on scene, they'll be able to kind of tie this up and give us more particulars with their investigation. But at this time, that's all that we have. Again, I think we can all agree, we can celebrate on today that no one was killed in this horrific incident.
The two people that were transported, can you describe their injuries as to why they were transported to the
No, sir, I don't have any details on the injuries.
So where are the passengers now?
Anybody?
They still by the plane? Where are they?
Okay, all back at the airport. All back at the airport, safe and sound. Thank you, guys.
Do you have a Spanish speaker for us?
I do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hola, me llamo Trooper Miguel Tejeda, soy con el Departamento Público de Estado de Texas, policía estatal, está la policía de condado y luego los bomberos del condado y de Jerez. Pero en este día, a las 10:01 de la mañana, hubo el accidente con el avión. Trató de subir en el aire, pero no pudo. Y las llantas se mantuvo en el runway y hasta que hizo contacto en el pastor. Y luego parece que un incendio, un fuego, y antes que se puso muy grave, los pasajeros pudieron abrir la puerta y salir de una manera. Y salieron y todos están bien. Eran 21 total. Y de ahí ellos se alejaron del avión y el avión pues se consumió en el fuego. Y eso es lo único que sabemos en este punto. Ahora, ¿qué causó el accidente? No sabemos de cierto, pero sí sabemos que nunca alcanzó a llegar al aire.
¿Cuál es el sentimiento entre ustedes, los rescatistas y oficiales, de que no haya habido fatalidades?
Pues como dijo el otro señor, nosotros siempre creemos que cuando nos dan la llamada, nosotros pensamos que vamos a ver lo más peor. Pero en este día, gracias a Dios que no todos están bien. No hubo ninguna fatalidades.
¿Cómo salieron los pasajeros? ¿Cómo pudieron salir del avión?
No hablé con todos, pero hablé con uno y uno dijo que abrieron la puerta y se tiraron. No sé de qué 15 pies, 10 pies, no sé la altura, pero se tiraron, se salieron del avión rápido.
El avión se termina la pista y cruzó Morton Road hacia el otro campo.
Exactamente, sí. Hay como 500 pies en el Pastor, el lado del aeropuerto. Luego cruzó la calle y hay como otros 500 pies después, aproximadamente. Pero nunca alcanzó aire.
¿Qué parte del avión se consumió más? ¿El fuselaje, las alas o está totalmente destruido?
Pues lo que vi yo, todo, solo los dos motores, lo que quedaron atrás. Digamos, los primeros dos, el fugilaje y todo donde están sentados los pasajeros, todo eso se quemó.
¿Dónde están ahora los pasajeros y si alguien fue llevado al hospital?
Pues de los 21, 2 se fueron al hospital por heridas menores y ¿cómo se dice? El smoke, el humo. Pero los otros están en el aeropuerto.
¿Qué tan difícil fue tener acceso al avión donde quedó para los rescatistas?
Había, de buena suerte, había una calle de que usan los que son dueños de la propiedad. Hay una calle ahí así como de tierra y piedra, así que directamente al avión.
¿Qué continúa ahora? ¿Qué procede ahora?
Ahora solo estamos esperando para el FAA, que lleguen aquí las autoridades federales, y de ahí ellos van a seguir la investigación.
¿Ya hay alguien midiendo, viendo cómo fue el accidente?
Eso lo harían ellos.
¿Y también entrevistar a los pilotos?
Exactamente.
Entonces, ¿a qué hora se podría abrir el camino y cuánto tiempo duraría esta investigación?
Eso sí no te puedo decir. Yo he ido a unos menores y son 4 o 5 horas. Este es un poco más grande que es gran investigación. Puede que sea un poco más. Pero
¿es un avión privado de una compañía? ¿Quiénes son los dueños del avión?
No sé quién son los dueños, pero yo sé que el avión sí normalmente de aquí opera. Pero creo que es privado, el avión privado.
Thank you, man. We appreciate y'all.
All right. Gracias.
Did anyone confirm they're going to the ball game?
We don't know. We just know manifest. Yeah, that's not our All right, thank you.
Gracias.
Hey, sir,
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. Is there a way to get weekend, give someone permission, like a pool camera to go get access, like be escorted in, and then we can share the footage with everyone?
Yeah, they still shut down.
Is there a way to be like at a safe distance?
It's still on
Okay, we've been listening to officials there, the DPS and Waller County as well, saying it's a day of celebration because no one was seriously hurt and no one was killed. But we have confirmed through the wife of the plane's owner, the passengers were on their way to Boston to watch Game 4 tonight, Astros and Red Sox. We also learned that 2 people were taken to the hospital. We don't know the extent of the injuries, but at one point, one of the officials did say that there were lower back pain and respiratory issues.
And as we've been hearing the DPS troopers saying, this was a good day because, again, as Ron said, everyone on board made it off safely. Only 2 minor injuries. Those folks were taken to the hospital. The youngest passenger on the plane was a 10-year-old child. But again, all passengers and crew are back on the ground. They are safe, and apparently they're still at the airport right now.
Yeah,
so.
and the officials said that they were stunned. But here's a plane crash where the plane never left the ground.
And that was the whole thing. The plane never left the ground. It rolled off the runway, through a fence, became disabled. A lot of dense brush, a lot of trees in that area. So when we saw those flames erupt from the plane, pretty nerve-wracking to watch that. But firefighters were able to contain it and control it. Now, Jeremy Rogalski with our investigative team was here, and you have a little bit more about the conversation between air traffic controllers and the pilot just before all of this happened.
We do, and we'll get to that in a moment, but our Janelle Bluda spoke to the wife of the aircraft owner and confirms that he is identified as James Allen Kent, the owner of this McDonnell Douglas DC-9 MD-87. Again, 21 people on board. The plane holds many more. It has a capacity for over 100 passengers, as we were talking about, but that crew headed for Boston to watch the Astros game. Later on this evening from Executive Airport in the Waller County area. And so very interesting, as we mentioned, that the plane never took off. And that, as we listened, Reka and Ron, to air traffic control, makes a lot of sense because, and we have a timeline here and hopefully we can pull that up, the tower at Executive Airport cleared this aircraft for departure just before 10 o'clock. 9:58, 27 seconds actually, and the rest of the transmissions were about a half minute later. The tower actually told the pilot to make sure that you get above 1,200 feet because there was some helicopter traffic in the area, and wanted to make sure that he cleared that traffic. And the pilot just a few seconds later said that should be no problem. I'll keep a lookout for that, and we don't hear anything else. We hear no distress call, we hear no mayday call that we've so accustomed to, nothing of that nature. And when you look at the scene and then you hear from DPS, that's what makes sense. It traveled about 500 feet. You see the skid marks off the end of the runway, through that fence line, through that row of trees, coming to rest and bursting into flames. And again, it's fortunate, and certainly in many ways, that it did not gain altitude. It did not take flight. I think the storyline of the day, it can't be repeated enough. This was a good day, all things considered.
Yes, the DPS thing is a day of celebration. They have to thank their lucky stars that this wasn't worse. And they talked about how the passengers were reacting, and they said that they were stunned, obviously. Very stunned. It would have been frightening going down 500 feet and then maybe 100 yards down that field.
And I thought it was very interesting that in police speak, he said they all self-extricated. So plain English, they got out on their own.
Yeah.
We don't know how they got out on their own, but the fact that they did not sustain injuries severe enough to require somebody pulling them out or first responders to get them out. Of course, we do have 2 hospitalizations. We don't know the status of them. Hopefully everything's fine. But those 18 passengers and those 3 crew members were able to get out on their own.
Right, and we should add that they were sent to the hospital. We don't know that they're still hospitalized or anything like that, but they were sent perhaps just as a precaution. We don't know. But they did say that there were some issues with lower back pain and respiratory issues, as you can imagine, with the smoke and everything.
And it sounds like we are hearing from one of the witnesses. Let's listen in.
I didn't really see much of the plane go down, but I did see the boom and I felt the explosion. So then we just came out here and started helping everybody, conduct traffic, make sure all the emergency people got in and out and everybody was good.
and to her point, this is a witness who, as she said, she heard the explosion. This was the best possible outcome given what we've been seeing the last hour or so with those flames erupting and everyone getting off of that plane so quickly. So obviously there's a lot of cleanup to be done. This is video and images from earlier today from Air 11. You see firefighters fighting those flames with water and of course foam to keep everything under control, and also having to maintain and control the runoff and contain the runoff from all of this because there's a lot of jet fuel and other chemicals that's in there. But again, when they finish the cleanup, now the flames are out, they're going to finish the cleanup, and of course the investigation has started. They're looking into, you know, what exactly happened and what caused this plane to roll through that fence right off the runway. But the FAA and the NTSB will pick it up from there.
And what she said was interesting too, because we said the plane caught fire. Well, she said she heard an explosion. So that's a lot different. It's a different animal, obviously, when something explodes as opposed to something just catching fire. So even more frightening.
Yeah.
Even more frightening.
When you think about all those people on board, especially the youngest one being a 10-year-old child, I can't imagine how scary this must have all been. We understand, though, that all of the folks who are on the plane are still at the airport. They're inside the airport, possibly going to be interviewed. Folks will be talking to them. But 2 people were taken to the hospital. We don't know if they're still in the hospital. We don't know the exact injuries that they suffered. But again, we've been hearing minor injuries.
Minor injuries.
Nothing incredibly serious. And that's very good news considering everything we saw transpire this morning.
Absolutely. As the DPS was saying, it's a day of celebration. Let's go back to our reporter on the ground there, David Gonzalez. Can you give us any kind of update, David?
Hey, yeah, talking to DPS, we just finished that press conference, and they started off the press conference by saying this is a good day, and this is obviously a good day because they are very happy to report that there were no injuries, serious injuries, and there were no fatalities. Right now, here's a live look. Excuse the traffic going by, but we are getting a better picture off into the distance of what remains of this aircraft, which is pretty much nothing, they say. Everything from the tail moving forward has been destroyed, according to DPS out here, and they say that it's a miracle that no one was killed in this plane crash. According to DPS, they say that the plane traveled about 500 feet on the ground, rolling through a fence and then going another 500 feet before it finally came to a stop here in this field right next to the airport. According to DPS, they say that everyone on board was able to get out on their own, which is a good sign. Minor injuries. 2 people were transported to the hospital. When I asked them what specifically those injuries were, they could not provide that information, but they did say that people were suffering from lower back pain, also from respiratory issues. If you've seen the footage from when this plane first crashed, there was black plumes of smoke coming from the aircraft. They say that this area is a heavily brushed area, so those passengers had to get out and of course make their way as far as possible from that plane crash. So we do not know if they received any kind of cuts from the brush and stuff like that, but of course they are being treated here at the scene as well as at the hospital, those 2 people that were transported. We do know that everyone is back at the Houston Executive Airport, and that's where they are right now, and we're assuming from there they could either go home, or if they need further assistance they could go to the hospital as well. But according to DPS, everyone is lucky to be alive. This could have been a lot worse, and we would be reporting on a major tragedy out here outside in Waller County, outside of the Houston Executive Airport. Luckily, everyone was able to make it out safely, and right now deputies out here say that right now it's just making sure that the scene is contained.
Absolutely. David Gonzalez reporting live from the ground. Thank you so much. We're going to go now to Cheetah Craft. You know, we've been talking about Cheetah, how the flight conditions were just wonderful today. We've got, you know, great visibility, no high winds here, but the plane never made it off the ground, and that weather actually proved to be very advantageous for firefighters putting out those flames.
Rika, you're right. Anybody who's a pilot or was going to take a flight today, ideal day to take off because it's just beautiful out there. We did have some cloud cover early, but that broke apart so quickly. So really the impacts here, we're talking weather conditions impacting this location and broaden out the scope so you can see, even if you're in the surrounding areas. We're talking about on the cusp between Harris County and Waller County. We have an easterly wind over this location. So those easterly winds are going to take any smoke and really have that travel central due west. So an east to west wind. We've tried to see some of these winds shift more out of the southeast, but I think at this point, most of these winds are going to probably stay and keep that smoke in Waller County. They're just not, they're all less than 10 miles per hour. So originally with some of the smoke, I was a little concerned with potential air quality issues across the area. I think because we have those clear skies, smoke is going to be able to lift out of the atmosphere. Winds are calm, so it'll give some natural mixing. We'll watch to see if any of the levels change at all. But so far, we've actually seen everything kind of mix out pretty easily. At the lower levels of the atmosphere, we don't have cloud cover to talk about. Visibilities were not a concern. So really current conditions right over this area. We have a calm easterly wind that is moving some of the smoke due west, and we're also tracking mainly clear skies. I've been looking at our satellite picture here, and some of the surrounding areas we do have some cloud cover, so especially closer to the coastline. I'll zoom out now where you see some of the deeper grays here right along the coastal areas or even portions of Wharton County. Those are clouds, so some of that would have helped to trap some of that smoke, but not the issue or the concern from Harris County into Waller County where this plane is. Basically, we have clear skies and calm winds, guys, and air quality so far, not much of a concern, but we'll continue to monitor.
All right, thank you so much, Trita Graff, for that update on the weather conditions out there. And Jeremy Rogowski, one of our investigative reporters, has been kind of digging deeper into what happened this morning and the owner of the plane.
Not only the owner of the plane, but the timeline of how this all went down, Ron. And so let's take a look. This is traffic control at 9:59. This is after he's cleared for takeoff. That they clear him for takeoff at 9:58 this morning, and everything's good to go. The only other transmissions as we scroll through the timeline here are the tower telling the pilot, hey, make sure you're above 1,200 feet, because apparently there was some helicopter traffic in the area. The pilot responds just a few seconds later saying that should be no problem. I'll keep a lookout for it. And then we don't hear anything until about 3 minutes later when the tower tells all aircraft in the area to hold your position. They're going to ask for a runway inspection, and then they suspend all runways. So the point being is there was no indication that anything was wrong. Cleared for takeoff. Make sure you keep an eye out for the helicopter traffic in the area, and according to the radio transmissions back and forth, everything was good to go. But then, of course, we hear DPS saying it only made it about 500 feet on the ground and never actually took flight, never gained altitude.
Yeah, in a lot of ways that could probably save lives in some ways, the fact that it never left the ground. So that's really good to know. We're going to go live to Janelle Bluda, who is live outside Houston Executive Airport in Waller County. And Janelle, it appears that you spoke with the wife of the owner of that plane. What did she tell you?
Yeah, Reika, well, let me give you just a brief setting of where I'm at right now. We are just right outside the Houston Executive Airport. Now, that plane crash happened on the other side of these buildings. It's been a very calm scene out here. A few people leaving and some people going inside. Not a lot. We haven't had a chance yet to talk to anyone, but I did, like you said, talk to the wife of the owner of that plane. I was able to talk to her by phone. She confirmed to me that her husband was on the plane. He is the owner, and that they were headed to the Astros game. Luckily, just like everyone else here, just very happy everyone was okay. But like I said, out here, a very calm, quiet scene as people come and go, and this is where we were told that the passengers were taken after that plane did crash, guys.
Well, you can see how they are, obviously thanking their blessings. Thank you so much, Janelle Bluda, down there at the airport. But as we heard earlier, they were stunned about what happened, and I'm sure frightened. Come on, a frightening experience for all those passengers today.
Absolutely. With the youngest passenger on board, just a 10-year-old boy, you can imagine after they crashed through that fence in the plane that they weren't quite sure what was going on. So thankfully, they were able to exit that plane immediately. Janelle, have you seen anyone else come out from the airport? We know that 2 people were taken to the hospital, and we don't know if they were transported by ambulance or someone drove them to the hospital. Again, no serious injuries or fatalities, just minor injuries. Have you seen any other emergency vehicles there since you've been there?
We did just see a couple firefighters leave, Reika, but we just got here a few minutes ago. We wanted to jump on and tell you guys what we learned latest. I am going to try to talk to some people as they come in and out, It looks like we might be allowed on scene here to go up to the building, so maybe we can have a chance then to talk to a few people and see if we can find some of those passengers, but we will keep you updated on that, Reka.
All right, thank you so much, Chanel Bluto, live at the airport down there. Let's recap for everybody, if you're just joining us, about this incident involving a plane out at this airport in Brookshire, Katy area. We understand it was an M87. It was heading to Boston. The passengers wanted to go to Game 4 tonight in Boston to watch the Astros and Red Sox. DPS says it's a day of celebration because there were 18 passengers, 3 crew members, and nobody was seriously hurt. Nobody was killed. 2 people were sent to the hospital. But this plane never left the ground. It rolled, hit a fence, and caught fire. 2 pilots on board. There was a 10-year-old child on board, but again, this could have been a lot worse, Reka.
Very much so. A lot of people in Waller County today thanking their lucky stars that they made it out of this situation alive. Firefighters able to gain control of that fire and those flames on the plane. So again, as DPS Trooper said, this is a good day. Of course, we'll have more information and coverage on KHOU.com and the very latest coming up on the 411. Have a great afternoon.
Are your drains constantly backing up? Call Village Plumbing and Air today for our $149 drain special using the latest video technology. And get peace of mind with our 90-day no-clog guarantee.
Trust your home to Village Plumbing and Air. Call
giving you a hard time. Yeah, but safety first. Is that your microphone? Or? Yes, sir. Okay. I thought they may give us some information out here, but it turned out they did it back here. So I was just listening to it on my phone. I got some pictures. I saw some pictures. It's in pretty bad shape. The plane. It's like broken in half, totally burned. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna move this barricade.
Okay.
I don't wanna mess with that though. That looks
Would you
expensive.
hand it to me so I don't have to unplug?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Am I going to be okay here?
Fine, I'm just gonna move this across, make sure no cars come through. That's it, he parked right where I was sitting. Now.
Take care. Smart. What's up? I'm down at the end. My camera's still live streaming. I'm just shooting down the road. I can't see the plane. They got a barricade up here at the end where it turns into Morton. Dead ends into Morton. So if you take a right out when you leave the airport. No, I can't see the plane. I can just see emergency vehicles. I'm a half a mile from it. I did not. Okay, bye. Gracie, it's Mark. I need to. I was gonna say I need to swap batteries. I can wait 15 minutes or so. Get down to 30%.
Let me know when you're done. Let me know when he's done. Okay, bye.